My first real garden was 4 pots on a patio, and by August 3 of them were dead. Forgotten. Bone dry. I remember feeling like some people just aren't meant to grow things. If you felt that too, I have good news that took me way too long to figure out. There is a whole group of vegetables that a forgetful beginner simply cannot kill in a container. 11 of them to be exact. They survive missed waterings, wrong spots, and long stretches of pure neglect, and they still show up with something to eat. I want to tell you the thing I wish someone had told me back on that patio. It was never about having a green thumb. It was about picking the right plants for the way I actually live. I am busy. I forget. I go away for the weekend and come home to soil that looks like a dried-up sponge. The plants on this list were bred, or simply grew up wild, in conditions rougher than a sunny balcony. They expect a little hardship. So when you hand them a pot, some decent dirt, and a bit of benign neglect, they do not sulk. They just keep going. Let me walk you through all 11, starting with the one that convinced me I was not hopeless after all. Number 1 is kale, and this is the plant that changed my mind about myself. Kale is a cool weather green that shrugs off the kind of treatment that flattens fussier vegetables. It handles light frost without blinking, and a hard cold snap actually makes the leaves taste sweeter. What makes it perfect for a forgetful beginner is the way it grows. You do not harvest the whole plant at once. You just snap off the lower, oldest leaves whenever you want dinner, take no more than a third at a time, and the center keeps pushing out new growth for months. According to Clemson University's Home and Garden Information Center, kale grows happily in a container as small as 2 gallons, which is roughly the size of a large ice cream tub. Think of it like a haircut that grows back better every time. The neglect it forgives most is inconsistent watering in cool weather, because the thick, waxy leaves hold moisture like a camel. Give it a pot, a sunny corner, and the occasional splash of water, and it will feed you long after your other plants have given up. And if kale is the tough one, the next plant on our list might be even harder to kill. Number 2 is Swiss chard, and honestly, this one borders on unkillable. Chard is the rare green that laughs at both a little cold and a lot of heat. Kale tends to wilt and turn bitter when July arrives, but chard just slows down and keeps producing. The Old Farmer's Almanac notes that chard is one of the most heat-tolerant greens you can grow, and University of Maryland Extension describes harvesting it leaf by leaf in a cut and come-again method for months on end. Grow it in a container of 2 gallons or larger. When the plant is 6 to 8 inches tall, start cutting the biggest outer leaves and leave the little ones in the middle to carry on. The neglect chard forgives best is the summer heat that ends most leafy greens. While your lettuce is bolting and your spinach is turning bitter, chard sits there with glossy leaves and stems in red, gold, and pink, looking like you planted it on purpose. It even tolerates a bit of shade, so a spot that only gets morning sun is fine. Once you taste homegrown chard sautéed with a little garlic, you will wonder why you ever bought bagged greens. Speaking of things that thrive on being ignored, wait until you meet the plant in slot 3. Number 3 is green onions, also called scallions, and this is the closest thing to a magic trick in the vegetable world. Scallions have shallow roots, grow fast, and tolerate almost any light you throw at them, from bright sun to a dim windowsill. Here is the part that makes forgetful gardeners smile. When you buy a bunch at the store and use the green tops, do not throw away the white bottoms with the little roots. Stick them in a small pot of soil, root end down, and they regrow the green tops again and again. It feels like getting free food for doing nothing. A shallow container 6 inches deep is plenty, since the roots do not go looking for much. The neglect scallions forgive is basically all of it. Miss a watering, park them somewhere too dark, ignore them for a week, and they keep pushing up green. They are the definition of low stakes. If you have ever been afraid to start because you thought you would waste money, start here with kitchen scraps you are going to toss anyway. Now, if scallions are the beginner's confidence builder, the next one is the salad bowl that refills itself. Number 4 is leaf lettuce, and the trick is choosing the loose leaf kind rather than the tight heads. Head lettuce asks for patience and consistent care. Loose leaf lettuce asks for almost nothing. You scatter the seed thinly across a wide, shallow pot, and in a few weeks you are picking outer leaves for a salad while the center keeps growing. That cut and come again style means one small container can feed you for weeks from a single sowing. A pot 8 inches deep and 12 inches wide holds a generous patch. The neglect leaf lettuce forgives is a lack of full sun. In fact, it prefers a spot that gets some afternoon shade, especially as the weather warms, because too much heat is what makes lettuce turn bitter and shoot up to seed. So that shady corner of your balcony you thought was useless, perfect for lettuce. Keep the soil from going bone dry and you will have salads on tap. And here is a comforting thought before we move on. If you can grow lettuce, you can absolutely grow the fastest vegetable on this entire list. Number 5 is radish, and if you have ever wanted a quick win to prove you can do this, radishes are it. They germinate in about 3 to 7 days, which is fast enough that you can watch the little green shoots appear before you have time to lose interest. Many varieties are ready to pull in under a month. The gardening resource Clean Green Simple points out that radishes are one of the easiest container vegetables precisely because they have shallow roots, mature quickly, and do not need fertilizer or trellising or any complicated fuss. A round pot 6 inches deep works fine, and a 12-inch pot can hold about 6 radishes at a time. The neglect radishes forgive is impatience and inexperience because they simply do not stay in the ground long enough for you to mess them up. Cool spring and fall weather suits them best. Sow a small pinch every couple of weeks, and you will have a steady trickle of crisp, peppery roots without ever feeling overwhelmed. There is something deeply reassuring about a plant that rewards you in under a month. Now let me show you a vegetable that does the opposite, because it barely needs you at all for months. Number 6 is garlic, and this one might be the ultimate plant, it and forget it crop. You push individual cloves into the soil in the fall, root end down, and then you essentially walk away until early summer. There is no daily fussing, no constant watering, no anxious hovering. Garlic just sits underground doing its slow, patient work while you get on with your life. Gardening know-how suggests a container at least 12 inches deep, and a 14-inch wide pot comfortably fits 8 to 10 cloves spaced a few inches apart. One important tip: buy certified seed garlic rather than planting a bulb from the grocery store, since store garlic is often treated to stop it from sprouting. The neglect garlic forgives is time itself. You can genuinely ignore it for weeks, and as long as the pot does not stay soggy, it keeps developing underground. When the lower leaves turn brown, you dig up whole homegrown bulbs. For a forgetful gardener, a crop that thrives on being left alone all winter feels almost too good to be true. If garlic wins on patience, our next plant wins on sheer stubbornness in a pot. Before we get to the second half of the list, let me say one quick thing. If any of this is making you feel a little more hopeful, that is exactly the point. And there is plenty more like it on this channel. Now back to the vegetables that refuse to die. Number 7 is mint, and I am putting it in a container on purpose because a pot is the only sane way to grow it. Mint is so aggressive in open ground that it will take over a whole bed and choke out its neighbors. In a container, though, that same stubbornness becomes a gift. Mint tolerates shade, forgives dry spells, bounces back from being cut down hard, and regrows from the roots even when the top looks wrecked. Grow it in its own pot, never sharing with other plants, and it will happily fill that pot with fragrant leaves. A container around 8 inches across is plenty to start. The neglect mint forgives is nearly everything short of a total drought, and even then it often springs back once you water it. Snip sprigs for tea for a pitcher of water for cooking, and the plant only grows bushier. Just keep it contained and you get all the reward with none of the invasion. And staying on the theme of tough, aromatic plants, the next one is a drought lover that practically prefers to be forgotten. Number 8 is oregano, and this herb genuinely does better with a little neglect. Oregano comes from the dry, sunny hillsides of the Mediterranean, so it is built for lean soil and infrequent water. Overwatering and pampering are what actually harm it. The Old Farmer's Almanac describes oregano as a hardy, low-maintenance herb, and a 6 to 8 inch pot with good drainage in a sunny spot is all it asks for. You water when the top inch of soil is dry, and otherwise you leave it be. The neglect oregano forgives is dryness, which most beginners fear but oregano welcomes. Think of it like a desert traveler that packed light and expects the road to be tough. Harvest sprigs regularly, and it grows bushier and more flavorful, and it will keep coming back season after season in a pot. If you have killed plants by loving them too much and watering too often, oregano is your redemption crop. Now we shift from herbs to something a lot of beginners are scared to try, but really should not be. Number 9 is cherry tomatoes. And yes, tomatoes belong on a forgiving list, as long as you pick the small fruited kinds. Big beefsteak tomatoes can be demanding, but cherry and grape types are far more forgiving and productive, pumping out handfuls of fruit even when conditions are less than perfect. They do want sun and a decently sized pot, at least 5 gallons, roughly the size of a large bucket, so the roots have room to stretch. But once they are established, they tolerate the occasional dry spell and keep setting fruit through the heat of summer. The neglect cherry tomatoes forgive best is uneven watering once they are mature and rooted deep. A self-watering container or a simple layer of mulch on top of the soil buys you slack for the days you forget. Choose a variety labeled bush or determinate if you want less staking and fuss. Nothing rebuilds a nervous gardener's confidence quite like walking out to a pot dripping with red cherry tomatoes you were sure you had neglected to death. And if tomatoes feel like a stretch, the next plant is one of the most beginner-proof things you can put in a pot. Number 10 is bush beans, and these are the quiet workhorses of the container world. Bush beans are naturally adapted to handle occasional dry spells. They mature fast in around 50 days, and they even improve your soil by pulling nitrogen from the air, which is a fancy way of saying they feed themselves. You do not need a trellis the way you do with pole beans because bush types stay compact and hold themselves up. Sow the seeds directly in a pot about 8 inches deep, water them in and let them go. A little tip from experienced growers: pinch off the very first blossoms to push the plant into making more pods overall. The neglect bush beans forgive is the occasional missed watering during dry stretches, thanks to their built-in drought tolerance. They are fast, they are forgiving, and they turn a single packet of cheap seeds into weeks of fresh beans. For anyone who wants a big payoff for a small effort, this is the crop. And that brings us to the 11th and final plant, one that might be the fastest, easiest green of them all. Number 11 is arugula, and it is the peppery green that practically grows itself. Arugula sprouts quickly, matures fast, and thrives in the cooler shoulder seasons of spring and fall when a lot of other plants struggle. Like leaf lettuce, it is a cut-and-come-again crop, so you snip the outer leaves for a salad and the plant keeps producing more. A container 6 to 8 inches deep and about 12 inches wide holds a healthy little patch. The neglect arugula forgives is cool, imperfect conditions and some shade, since strong afternoon sun in hot weather is really its only enemy. Scatter the seed thinly, keep the soil from drying out completely, and within weeks you are harvesting a spicy green that costs a small fortune at the store. It is a fitting end to this list, because arugula proves the whole point. The easiest food to grow is the food that expects a little neglect and rewards you anyway. So let me take you back to that patio with the 3 dead pots. The problem was never me, and if you have stood over a dried-out container feeling the same defeat, the problem was never you either. We just picked plants that needed more than we had to give. Kale, chard, scallions, leaf lettuce, garlic contained mint, oregano, cherry tomatoes, bush beans, and arugula are different. They are built to forgive. Start with 2 or 3 of them in whatever pots you already have, water when you remember, and let them prove to you that you can absolutely grow things. If this gave you a little hope and you want more down-to-earth gardening on a budget, there is plenty more like it here on the channel. Go put a plant in a pot. The Forgetful Gardener's Garden is waiting.